If you ain't a gator, you must be gator bait. If you ain't a gator, you must be gator bait.
Welcome back and welcome in to another episode of If You Ain't a Gator Podcast, part of the Stadium and Gale Network. Spring ball is here, and I can't even begin to explain how happy and how much I feel like a little kid at Christmas to see football on my Twitter timeline again. We got a lot to touch on today. We're going to go through spring ball. We got some recruits that are going to be in town, and not some, actually, a lot of recruits that are going to be in town. We got some jersey number changes, and we might repeat. Might Natty repeat this year? We don't know. We're going to talk about it today, go through it. Kyle, as always, how was your week? Haven't really talked much. How was your week?
Week's been great. We got helmets on. We got pads coming tomorrow. Spring ball's back. We're back. It's been a long couple months, but ready to get after it. Excited to see what this team's looking like, and the energy that the team and the coaches have are already getting me fired up. I'm already ready for Lion season. Let's go.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. Like, to see it on the timeline and just see just the football flying through the air and players and it's crazy because, to just watch it and like to be into the John Summerall era now. Like, I know we've been there with hiring coaches and everything, but to see him out there on the field and actually coaching and helmets being on and players running drills. And I would like to see a couple of players out there that aren't, but better safe than sorry. So diving into spring ball, so far, what are you seeing that you love? We're getting clips on the timeline. Shout out to the fellas that are putting it out there.
Yeah, I mean, just the overall energy. It just seems like, we got, and the transparency. First and foremost, the transparency. Like, we're getting so much more access to the players and the coaches via, the media availability. And then not only the interviews themselves, because, the coaching staff last year did the interviews as well, but we're getting so much more, like, just the truth and transparency. I mean, right. Some are coming out saying, hey, no dig at the last staff, but like, I'm just going to go ahead and put out the injury report because I feel like this is how I want to do it. And him coming out and telling us very clearly what's going on with injuries, from returning players, from freshman players. So the transparency there, the amount of clips, the media availability that they've given to the reporters, as far as filming and taking photos of camp so far has been great. Which is what you want as a Gator fan when you've got 50 plus new players, whether it's from the transfer portal or the high school recruiting. So for me, it's a breath of fresh air. And then obviously from the energy and the intensity side of it, seeing the players get after it, and whether they had a bad rep or a good rep, coaches come out saying no, do it again, do it right. Chapman's always just a clip monster, but he's fired up. He's bringing that energy as he always does. And then getting to see Coach Summerall all over the field, influencing the team and influencing the players and the coaches with each rep. That's just been awesome to see, especially because from what we saw in past clips and what we've seen from the reporters and the beat writers, with how maybe our old regime did it and how our old head coach did it, where, he was more kind of in the background and focused on the quarterbacks and the offense and not really running around across the field, covering every blade of grass on that practice field. It's been nice to see a coach that, hey, I trust my coaches. I don't need to sit behind one position group the entire time and babysit them. I'm going to let my coaches do their thing, and I want to go ahead and have a pulse, on every part of this practice and every part of this team. That's been great to see. And so, so far, again, games haven't been played yet, but, with everything that the staff has done and the attitude and the energy adjustment that we've seen, very excited, very, very excited to see, what future practices hold, especially once we start getting into live hitting and 11-on-11, with pads.
Yeah, I agree. I think the great thing is about this is, again, and it sounds crazy. Like, I feel like when I say this out loud, it sounds insane to say, but to hear that there is cussing going on at practice, screaming going on at practice, like, you need that stuff. I think that makes a great team. That builds something there. That all trickles down onto all the players, the other coaches, like that all goes onto them, and it creates a mood and a temperament of how you're going to go into games. And I feel like the vanilla type team that we had last season, that showed. That's why we won 4 games. And then now to hear coaches screaming and hollering, it's like, even when they do a rep right, you hear them screaming, "Oh, he thinks he's something," like, do it again, like challenging them. I love that stuff. Okay, you did it once. That's good. Okay, if you can do it once in a game, all right, cool. You get a clip for your Instagram, but can you do it multiple times? You do that same drill right multiple times, and you ain't even going to worry about clips on Instagram because they're going to clip you and put you on ESPN and on all the sports channels. You're going to get put on there on If You Ain't a Gator, super important. But I love to hear it, love to see it. And then shout out to Dylan Olive. I heard him on High Top, and one of the big things that he touched on, and it just stood out to me, was how last year in spring practice, when you were looking for Napier, where's Napier at? Oh, he's over here right behind the quarterbacks. Okay, here's 45 minutes later. All right, where's Nape at? Oh, he's still behind the quarterbacks. Got a headset on. And he goes, man, I'm trying to record clips of all these different positional groups. And he goes, every time I'm trying to record, he's like, Summerall's right there. And it's not because he's trying to be around the camera. It's because he's around every single group. And he's making sure that it's running. That's what a CEO does. A CEO, he hires people. Okay, here, you run this, but I'm going to make sure that it's running correctly, that you're not over here just kind of screwing off and doing what you want to do, and you're letting players kind of lollygag. No, we're going to move around, and we're going to make sure that this is a machine that's pushing forward. And just some of these clips, we got some clips to show y'all, but just watching it, it just feels like a different team. It does. Like,
I mean, I think when you look at the Billy Napier press conferences in the spring, he would say, hey, it's a process. We've got to keep working at it. It's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. This coaching staff now, because one with Summerall's interviews, because he's all over the field and he's watching every group, right?
Yep.
He knows, he's like, hey, he's a defensive minded coach, but he's like, hey, the offense, they didn't really run that well today. There's things that we need to work on, and they're coming out and they're not necessarily calling certain players out. I mean, they are in a way, but they're more so just saying, hey, look, we're not there yet, whereas Napier never really kind of pulled back the curtain and like let you know exactly what was going on. It was always about phases and processes and trust the process and all of that. To have Brad White come out on his press conference and say like, hey, I've been impressed with LJ McCray, but he's got a lot of things to work on. And then they're calling out certain players that, hey, I liked him here, but he's, at practice, he's winded. He needs to get his conditioning up. Like those things, calling out specific players and really pulling back the curtain for us as fans to see is huge, because we didn't get that in the last staff. And so I'm really happy to see that, like, hey, I think it matters too when you call out a position group or you call out a certain player and say, hey, they're doing good, but they can be better. They have the potential.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't demotivate a player. That actually motivates a player, right? Because they're like, hey, this coach sees it in me. He's calling me out for it, and they're calling it out in a respectful, manner. But I've been impressed so far with how the staff has treated their press conferences and the information that they're willing to give to the media and to the fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in touching on that, just like calling out individual players when you're young, especially, honestly, even now, like it sucks when you're a part of a group of something and you get called out and it's like, hey, you're doing good here, but you could do better. Even though they're kind of complimenting you in a sense, but also at the same time, it almost feels like in your mind, you're like, oh, like, why you got to call me out? But what you're not looking at, when you can look at it from this side, when I'm looking, okay, at LJ or whatever, and I'm looking at this person's being called out, I'm like, it's because they see something in you. They know you got that in you and you're doing good, but they want to see that, like, there's another level. Like, they're like, okay, he's doing good to like maybe great things and he could do elite things. That's why we're calling him out. And that's the biggest thing that I hear from it when these guys are calling them out, and just all of it as a whole. You listening at practice, listening to Summerall yelling and Chapman yelling and them calling them out like, oh yeah, great rep, do it again. Great rep, do it again. And it's like, you're getting called out, and it's like, that sucks. It's annoying, but it's like, it's hard to look at it when it's you, but there's a reason. They believe in you.
Especially like when you look at like, I think Buster, he had a little bit of a soundbite on Hezzy Kent, right? The very big human at tight end. He said, look, he's got elite ball skills, but we've got to get his weight down. He's got to get a little bit leaner to build up that speed. We would have never heard that from the last staff. And I think one of the things that the current players that are on the roster and what we've heard from high school recruiting is that this staff is very honest, like sometimes brutally honest, right? They're saying, hey, look, they're telling me what they like in my game. And they're also telling me like, hey, this is what you got to work on if you want to go to the next level, whether it's at Florida or once you get here, the next level being the NFL. So to me, players want that, especially like the NFL's and being a pro is a little different. You don't necessarily need all of that because you're already at that elite level. But when you're a 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid and you're either in high school or you're a first or second year player and you've got a lot to prove, players want transparency. They want to know what the coaches think. Right. Yep. And there's a fine line of calling a player out and doing it in the right way and doing it in the wrong way. But when you call out a player in the right way, that's going to internally motivate them. And that's going to say, hey, look, there's a reason that, everybody's discussing Hezzy Kent is because he's got the potential to be a phenomenal, just absolute X factor at tight end.
Yeah.
But he's got a few things he needs to work on. And so players don't want coaches that just sit there and tell them what they want to hear. They want a coach that's going to tell them what they need to know.
Yeah. We all want that though, right? That's a guidance. That's something that you, in a sense, don't want to be told what to do. It kind of sucks. But then when it happens and at first you're kind of egotistical, whatever. And then when you start doing it and it works, it's like, oh, like, and it feels good. Like, they were right. And you start to get that trust. And, I think they do look at it like the gauntlet. I think they're like, yo, what are we doing here? Especially the players that were on last year's team. But then you do it and you hear these players like, oh yeah, that's why we did it. Like, this is why we did it. Same thing with getting called out. I will guarantee you that players were not getting called out last year. I will bet money that he wasn't out there individually. He'd be like, hey, as a wide receiver group, kind of trying to word play. It's like, hey, you're doing bad, but I'll call everybody else out so we don't offend anybody. Whereas this coaching staff is like, you're going to hate us. And just like Coach Sum said on, one of the 58 podcasts that he's been on for the Gators so far, is that you cannot transfer right now. So you can either learn, listen, and do what you're supposed to do, or you can go sit on the bench. And that's fine. Either way, you're a Florida Gator. You choose. You try for the field, or if you want to cry about it and you want to wait and you want to waste a whole year and then transfer next year, fine. By all means, go. That's cool with us. That's the transparency I love. And that's what they're getting at practice.
I thought that Rusty Witt did an interview earlier this week, and I thought he had a really interesting soundbite, which he said, hey, look, the players in the beginning, they really weren't emotionally invested in this thing. Like when we did the gauntlet, they were kind of like, yep. And some of the players said it too. They're like, yeah, we didn't know if like they were serious about this thing, if this was going to be like a, hey, just try your best and then, we'll move on. But I think Miles Graham was saying like, no, we realized like Summerall was like, I will push back spring if we don't get this thing done. And then even Rusty said after a few of those practices where players were kind of going through the motion and, being mediocre, they realized like, hey, this has to get done or we're not going to put on helmets and pads. Yeah. And so that's part of building a team. And that's part of building a culture is you're going to have guys that are a little bit checked out, right? It's the beginning of winter ball and spring and conditioning. And so it's like, hey, I don't know if this is really going to be, something that we have to do. Maybe this is an option. And this coaching staff said, no, it's not. And so those players very quickly came to the understanding of I either got to put up or shut up because if I want to go out there and get on the field and start doing actual drills, I've got to get this gauntlet done. And so, and that's what it takes. Like to do something as hard as the gauntlet is, you can't half-ass it. You can't be mediocre. You've got to be 100% all in. And so I think that they've gotten these players' mindset where they need to be, and they understand the standard and what it takes. And so now that they've gotten through the gauntlet, I think that makes them that much better. It makes them that much closer as a team. So I think the gauntlet is a great thing, and I think it's going to work.
Yeah, I agree. And real quick, touching on the gauntlet, I had this thought last night, and I was like, yeah, I want to talk about it on the podcast. When I think about the gauntlet, and if anybody that's watching this, I know you've watched it, but the Swamp Kings documentary on Netflix, we didn't get to see something, and we didn't see it until that documentary came out, but to see like the midnight lift, right? Where they're coming in, they got their faces painted, and they're in there just like, and yeah, it's like in their ego lifting, and that's fine, but it's creating like menaces on the field. To me, the gauntlet kind of has that feel where it's like, it's directed towards the Gators. It's not like, oh, every team does a gauntlet. Maybe some other teams do because they learned it from Summerall or Rusty Witt or whatever, but it gives me that feel. Whereas like, get in there and just go as hard as you can. Yes, you want this guy to lift as much weight as you, but also at the same time, like, I want to lift at least 5 pounds more than him. Like, I want to be stronger than him because it's an ego. It's a competition. And that's the thing I love about it. Competition. It breeds. And you're going to see it like just in these clips, and just overall, you can see there's like a little bit of a change. There's a little bit of a different dynamic to this team. And I think some of these guys from last year are still learning. Yeah, I still think that they're a little bit like, this random guy comes in, he's screaming and hollering and, whatever. But we thought the last guy was a good coach, and look what he did. But I think that Coach Summerall is winning these guys over. And I think go ahead.
And I think he said it too, right? I mean, he had that famous quote, "Juiceless is useless." And he said that, like, hey, look, like when I got here, like the attitude and the intensity was something that needed to be changed. Like these guys were very complacent, and he's like, you guys won 4 games last year. Why in the hell are you complacent right now?
Yeah, I love it. So we're gonna dive into some of these clips, and just check them out. And you pointed out a couple of things before this, and I'll let you touch on those. But this first one that I'm going to pop up here with Coach Summerall, just listen to him. Just listen to him. I love the fact that you can hear him in these clips, because I went back and tried to find spring clips from last year, and you don't hear Billy. But listen to this first one here.
I'm still taking the air out of short straw. I'm not walking. Close the air.
Very quick. We only get clips. We only get a little bit of this, but just him being there, him being right there, and he's touched on it. We need that. You need a coach that is active there, because you don't want a coach that you don't want these players when they're talking about the head coach where it's almost like, well, yeah, he's this guy. He's the linebacker guy, only the linebacker guy. There's a clip that came out of special teams. And if you're a diehard Gators fan, that should be enough for you overall. And he is running with these guys like through special teams. And I'm like, bro, what did we get sent? Because I'm like, this is one of the best gifts I think we could have got. He's still got to win on the field, but.
And I think the biggest difference, Billy was, the quote unquote CEO, right? And that was, and there were parts of the program that needed that CEO type touch, right? Building out a big staff, doing, really tailoring the Gator Made program to be what it is now. But like the difference between a Billy Napier and a John Summerall is Billy Napier is the CEO, but John Summerall is the leader.
Right.
Right. Like he's the leader of this team. He's the leader of the coaches. He's the leader of the players. He wants it to be a player-led team, but he said, I'm going to lead. Like I'm going to put them in the right place. I'm going to build them up as leaders. I'm going to make sure that they're doing the right things. And so when you see clips coming out of practice of Yeah, he's with the linebackers and some of the defensive guys here doing drills, but like he's on the offensive side, he's on the defensive side, he's running kind of almost the point besides Gasparotto or Galante, excuse me, at special teams. Like he's all over the field and he's doing what he should be doing as a head coach, which is leading.
Yeah, that all falls on to everybody else. Again, it's been talked about on this podcast so many times, especially during the season, after the games that we lost. I'm like, you want to go watch a winner? Go watch any team that outside of your Indiana because they went undefeated. But look at these top teams. When they lose, go watch their players' interviews. Go watch their press conferences. They're not in there like, yeah, we got to go back and watch film. It's like, no, like, yo, we want to get that back. Like, we're pissed. And that is what the difference in this team is going to be. I'm telling you, you will not see these players go in there and it's like a different attitude. And that's because that's what Coach Sun brings. Like, he brings an attitude, he brings a drive in all of these guys. Every aspect of this team, even your practice squad players, are going to have his mentality. All of them. We'll pull up this next clip and I'll let you touch on it here. Bro, look at monsters. Bro.
Yeah, I mean, so again, like McLeod, to me, like I expect him, just from what I've seen on these clips and what the coaches have said, like I expect him to be a humongous breakout player for us this year. Like he looks the part. He's got violent hands. He's doing everything right. The clips that we've seen so far, like I mean, he's got the build, he's got the footwork, he's got the intensity. Like I'm very excited to see what guys like him, Jaden Woods, Cameron James do.
Hopefully get the LJ McCray.
Yeah, I mean LJ McCray, like the clips that we've seen so far, I think we have some pulled up maybe. He's the biggest question mark with him when he signed was I was like, I don't know, from a body standpoint, I think he's got to lean out, he's got to build some muscle. Like he had a little bit of softness to him. He's gotten rid of that like little softness in his abdomen area. Like he looks the part now of a D end. And I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to see again finally make that next level jump up to that 5-star caliber that he was coming out of college.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting with these practice clips being able to see that, if you watch the clips and you look at some of these veteran guys, the guys that have played, the guys that have been here for a number of years, their footwork, their techniques are at a much different level than some of the younger guys. Like I think we've got a clip we can pull up. You look at Eric Singleton running a route, looking at his release and his footwork. He's smooth and violent when he runs through those pads. And then if you pull up a clip of Marquez Daniel, the 4-star, big, huge-bodied wide receiver coming out, he's a little bit raw there with his footwork and with his hands on his release. And that's not to call Marquez Daniel out. He's a young guy, but that's the difference when you look at a guy that's returning, who's played in the SEC, who has that experience, and then you look at a guy who's coming out of high school who, needs to be coached up more. And so, it's great to see these guys coming out, but you can definitely see the difference between players who have done it and players who are coming in now who are a little bit more raw. The one, I would say the two guys that, this incoming freshman class that have done really good job so far on tape that I've seen from their footwork, from their technique, would be Jaraylen McCoy and KJ Ford. I think KJ Ford is 100% as advertised. When he signed, everybody said expect him to be out there his freshman year making an impact similar to like a Jaden Woods. And the clips that I've seen of KJ Ford so far, I think he's as advertised. He's going to be a guy. He's going to be an impact player as a freshman this year for the Gators. Built already like an SEC D end. I mean, he's got the body. He's got the look that you want. And he's explosive and has very good technique. And I'm excited to see, with Gerald Chapman now coaching the edges and the interior D linemen, what he's going to be able to pull out of him and what KJ is going to do his freshman year. So that's got me hyped up for sure.
Yeah. I want to go back to this clip of McLeod real quick. Well, you see the different players.
So this is a great clip to see again. Like if you scroll back and you go through what James is doing, you can see the differences in the violence in his hands and the chopping of his feet versus looking at LJ. LJ's a little bit slower, right?
Yeah.
That's where and then even here, right? A little bit better, but LJ still got some things he needs to work on. But he's got the body right, and so now it's up to the coaches to just work on his technique, work on that intensity that he has coming off the line like that, and using those hands violently to get past a lineman. But you can just see like that first player being Cameron James, like you can tell that he's been in the program for a number of years. He's played in the SEC. He's got the technique down.
Yeah, 100%. And something I want to touch on too, real quick, and it's just like falling back to the Rusty Witt, presser. Something he said, and I mean, you got to listen because these coaches have knowledge. Yeah, I mean, and they say stuff that that it's not like they're not just blowing smoke. They mean what they say. And something that Rusty said was that we're going to win an SEC championship by being nasty in the trenches. And I'm like, you didn't hear the last staff say that. This is what and I'm not trying to sit here and harp on the last staff, but it is a comparison because we got to compare. You got to. Like, we do not ever want to be like last year's team. We want to improve. But there's a reason why it's different because a lot of people go, oh, this is a G5 coach from Louisiana. Okay, I did it too. You can find it on my Twitter. I ain't hiding from it. I ain't ducking it. People got text messages. Trust me, I was mad. But, I have grown from this and learned. And I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention. But to hear that, and he goes, right now I'm looking at this, but we're going to work on this here, and we're going to be nasty in the trenches. And he said, one of the main things he said is like hand play. I want my guys to be aggressive with their hands. That's a big thing. If you want to knock those offensive linemen, because when you go against the Georgias and the Oklahomas and the Texas, and bro, it's not going against FAU. You're going to be able to dominate that O-line at FAU or Camels. But when you get to those Texas, the Oklahomas, the Georgias, these bigger guys, you're going to have to beat those guys, and not against these like basically JUCO teams that will play in FAU, Campbell Camels, FSU. Like when you play those JUCO guys, it's, it is what it is. You're going to be able to destroy their O-line. But I love that. I love it watching these clips. And then also touching on the wide receivers, like you said. Two things about the clips is, number one, watching Eric Singleton run this, and we're going to show another clip in a second that shows something else about Eric Singleton that is, like, it's insane.
And he almost outruns the ball.
Yeah.
He's
so fast. And the quarterbacks are learning him. This is why you have to have a quarterback in spring. Why? Because you got to learn receivers. You haven't played together for 4 years where you can be like, oh, this person's okay. No, you got to practice in spring.
I don't know if it was a quarterback or a coach throwing the ball in that drill, but whoever it is, they've got to keep in their mind though, hey, wait, this rep is going to Eric Singleton. I'm going to need to put a little extra juice on it because this boy is going to outrun my ball very easily if I don't put it out there.
Yeah, if these quarterbacks care, they see these clips and they go, okay, I've never thrown to Singleton before, but he's fast. He's really fast. So if he takes off on a go route or a deep post route, like, I got to put that thing out there. I can't underthrow him, because if not, that's the difference in a touchdown or even possibly an interception or just, a pass breakup. Sure. But like you said, I'll tell you this, though, watching the clip of Marquez Daniel, I can tell you right now, one thing I can't wait to see is I can't wait to see a red zone back shoulder, throw it up ball, and all 6'5" or however tall he is of him to go up and get it. That's going to be nasty. It may not be this year.
He's a guy that's got the size. Like when they signed him, I'm like 6'5", hell yeah, right? But I only mention him and Singleton's, side by side comparison is
Of
it's
course.
more of just a look at whatever Singleton is, a 4th or 5th year wide receiver, in college football versus a raw freshman. Like, he's got the speed, he's got the size, and he's got great hands, but it's the footwork, especially off the line, like at the line of scrimmage. Wide receivers with their releases that coming out of high school very rarely get the caliber of coaching they need to get off the ball with a release very quickly in the SEC. And so that's why, and even the coaching staff says, like, Marquez Daniels is an impressive young man, but he's got a lot of work to do. So, and especially if he's going to be that red zone X factor threat, eventually down the road, he's got to be able to get off the ball, get off press really quick. And really it's just 4 or 5 years of coaching in college football. You're going to have a really good, set of releases and footwork that you can do versus a guy coming out of high school who, needs to develop a lot of that and learn that. So it's great to see these guys in pads, but there is, when you look at it and you break it down, you can definitely see the difference between a veteran and, kind of a rookie.
Yeah, and if you want to see a difference in even just speed alone, this next clip is insane. It looks like he's in fast forward. But watch Eric Singleton.
Yeah, I mean, this is Eric Singleton, Davion Gross, and Ace Sperling. And I mean, Davion Gross is an extremely fast playmaker, right? He's probably, of all the freshman wide receiver we signed, I expect him to be the biggest impact of the freshman class. But yeah, I mean, Eric Singleton just looks like he's moving at like a 1.5x speed versus everybody else in normal speed. Like, he's incredibly fast, has fast feet, violent with his hands off the ball. Yeah, he's going to be an absolute weapon and hard to stop for any SEC corner this year.
Yeah, dude, everybody wants to talk about the quarterbacks, and we'll touch on the quarterbacks in a minute. But I'm like, bro, put me in a helmet and pads, and I'm going to make plays to these receivers. To think that we are almost forgetting about a Davion Gross or Marquez Daniel, I haven't seen a lot of clips yet, but before we went live, I was watching a clip of Shane Matthews talk about just practice in general. And he was like, our offense is going to be dynamic. Like, it has a chance to be so dynamic. And then one thing he touched on, and this isn't even a player that has gotten even really any spotlight at all. Whereas, like, some people might go, that's kind of bad. But it's, to me, I'm like, oh, we're that deep, is Micah Mays. You got him out there. And Shane Matthews said, and listen, like Shane Matthews or not, there's a reason that he did what he did and where he got to the level he got. He knows what offense looks like. You can switch up offenses, but stuff you never change is the fundamentals. And he's talking about Mays, and he goes, I like that kid. You know who else he talked about? Bailey Stockton. He goes, kid is a monster. Bro, we are so deep at wide receiver.
We have a plethora of elite wide receivers. I mean, Micah Mays was one of those guys in the transfer portal that it was a little bit of a head scratcher just because the stats didn't really, light up when you looked at him. But the clips I've seen so far of him, I mean, he is ginormous and he is very fast, very fluid, great hands. He's probably been the most surprising guy that I've seen the clip so far. Like, he is very, very good. And the coaching staff has even mentioned him numerous times, that he is a guy that's going to be a threat this year. And then Bailey Stockton, like, I was high on Bailey Stockton from the jump. I think, having the Buster Faulkner, offense already kind of under his belt in a way and having that experience there. And then I knew from looking at his film that he was a very good route runner. But he put out some clips. I think he had Route God, I think was the guy that came into the indoor practice facility, and he was putting him through some speed and agility drills. And I'm like, oh, this dude for a Great White Hope has some wheels. And he's violent in and out of his cuts. He keeps his balance very well, which is huge for a wide receiver when you come in and out of your cuts. And then looking at him at practice, like, he's smooth with it. Like, he's a dude. And so those two, outside of the big names, right? Like, we've got, Singleton, Dallas, and Vernell. Like, I think Bailey Stockton and Mays are going to be big contributors for us on offense. But I mean, really, like you look at this wide receiver room, I'm like, you count the names and you're like, geez, we're like 8 or 9 guys deep that could just go out there and play with the ones at any point in time. Like we have an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver.
Yeah.
And the question marks, right, are going to be who's going to throw the ball to the number one, and then who's going to block for the guy throwing the ball to him, right? Because we know what we have at wide receiver. We know what we have at running back. The big question marks for this offense in spring are going to be, how does the O-line shake out? And then who wins the quarterback battle?
Yeah. And what's funny is that being that deep at wide receiver, and honestly, being as deep as we are at running back, like we got a running back room that is like coaches drool over that. And to be that deep, that keeps DCs, I'm sorry, up at night, especially when like, oh my God, like they gave an OC like Buster Faulkner that cut, like bro just had like, he opened up the garage door and he's like, wow, these Ferraris and these Lambos and these just high powered vehicles are all mine. Like I get to do what I want to do with it. And then you go to the Tramel Jones and the Aaron Follows and they're your work truck. Like, yeah, they may not be super fast. They may not be, flashy and pretty, but I can tell you right now that they're going to be able to get the job done. And same thing with the O-line, right? I think all of us kind of have a little bit of PTSD from last year's team because we've just spent all these years of watching horrible offenses. And I'm not saying our O-line is going to go out there and just, either quarterback that's in there, their jersey is never going to touch grass ever. But the difference is when you have an OC like Buster Faulkner, that is not, he's just an air raid offense or he's just a pro style offense or whatever, wing T offense. He's not just one thing. He can throw it like numerous ones out there at you. And when you have somebody like that, that takes so much pressure off of your O-line. And that helps someone where like now you got Coach Trout and you got Buster Faulkner working together. And he's like, okay, this is what I know my O-line can do. I'm going to give you this much time. We're communicating. We're coaches. We're talking. We're in the, meetings together. Hey, these guys are really good at holding a team for this long, this X amount of time. So in this moment here, like it's all calculated. And that's what I love is I'm like, again, we'll touch on quarterbacks in just a second, but to see this and to see how everything is flowing, I honestly feel like this O-line is like, man, we're good. Like we're good. And I think that these receivers are going to maybe not have time for, really deep routes and deep comeback routes and things that need to develop well. But it's going to be, get the ball in these playmakers' hands. Eric Singleton, Vernell Brown, Mike, just get the ball in their hands and just let them do their job.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that gives me, some optimism with the offensive line is who we have calling plays, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, with Buster Faulkner, he's adaptable, right? Everybody tries to pigeonhole him. Oh, he was an air raid guy. Oh, he kind of ran like a heavy quarterback run option. At Georgia Tech, like again, he doesn't have an identity, right? He adapts to what the team is and what the roster looks like. And so, if we end spring ball and they're a little bit worried about the O-line, I expect Buster to go into the lab and start cooking up some plays that are going to get the ball out quicker, right? To make sure that we don't have to have, maybe like what we had with the old staff where we have these long developing deep routes or these long rollouts where we get the quarterback out of the pocket and the O linemen kind of have to, get off of their normal stance and their normal drops and kind of move around to block for a quarterback that's outside of the pocket. I think that, Buster's going to dictate the offense as to with what the strengths and weaknesses are of that offense. And so if O-line is a question mark and O-line might be a weakness, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but if it is, I expect him to have the right plays and to put the team in the right, situations to where, maybe that's if that is a weakness, it's less of a vulnerability because we're calling the right type of plays that are going to allow, to get the ball quickly into the receiver's hands and let them get downfield.
Yeah, bro. And we'll show this last clip from practice. And then we'll jump into just touch on the quarterbacks real quick. We don't have a whole lot, but just some, footnotes that we've seen from Twitter and things of that nature. But here's just the last clip that we got for you. And it's just more trench work. I don't know why it's so laggy here, but we'll play it again. Man, these dudes look massive though. But just look what they're doing. Like it's just these drills, man. It's just teaching these guys and
Well,
knowing
and
that
what you don't see here too is again Chapman as he always does is laying into the guys, and then you got a 1-2 punch with him, and then on the other side you got Summerall screaming at him as well. Just
here, we'll play it with sound real quick.
They're
for you
squeezing
guys.
every ounce of juice out of them as they can.
Here we go.
Nice, man. We've been way too nice.
As you can see, Chapman, he's not liking necessarily all of what he's seeing. And then you can see Summerall, he's probably coming off of the linebacker group or the DB group, and he's walking over and he sees his D-line coach getting a little animated, getting a little fired, getting a little frustrated, and he comes over to the other side and he just lays into him as well, saying, "Hey, I know you're tired, but this is the fourth quarter. This is what we got to do. You got to keep pushing, got to keep fighting." And so, like I said, very different from the last staff. I love to see this type of energy and pushing the guys, because again, it's the first week of spring ball. Like, guys are going to be tired. Even Rusty Witt said it doesn't matter how much strength and conditioning you do, in the winter, when you put helmets on, it tires the guys out, and they go through, instead of a 90-minute conditioning, they're going through a 3-hour practice. Like, guys are going to get tired, but they got to keep pushing. They got to keep fighting.
Yeah. And that's it, bro. It's just, all of it's just so different. The talking, everything is just different. You got a coach that's over here with the D-line, a head coach. Coach Chapman's we've seen clips last year. He's true to himself. I think that's why he clicked so well with Summerall. I think that's why he stayed on staff. Mm-hmm. He's out there and he's animated. He's yelling. He's hollering. Summerall's over there now hollering, like you said. They know, these coaches know that it's going to take a little bit of time, but they know that if they can bring the best out of you now, what are you going to be come fall? What are you going to be come September range, August range? What are you going to be then? So touching on quarterbacks real quick, Justin, who we were talking about is going to be throwing to these Ferraris and Lamborghinis. We got a little bit of a tidbit, I guess you'd say, thrown out there on X, that Shelton from High Top said that his boots on ground told him that basically Trammell is slinging it, basically. And I'll be honest, and maybe it's just because I like Trammell, so maybe I'm being a little bit biased, just because he's been a Gator and whatnot. But watching him throw, there is some zip on that ball. I mean, we saw it last year that he had zip on it. And when he came in for the little bit that he came in, he looked like he kind of commanded the team. But also to hear, I think it was Dylan Olive said that, like, the team flocks to Trammell. They flock to Philo as well, but it's like really to Trammell. And so I'm going to let you give your opinion on it. And this is kind of like my last tidbit on it, the last little thing to say. Does Philo have a one-up? And Buster Faulkner said, like, no one has a leg up. And I'll be honest with you, I believe him. I think that Philo has a, I guess, leg up, you'd say, on the sense of he knows the verbiage. Whereas Trammell over here, I'd say on the same, if you want to do it like that, he has a leg up because the team really flocks to him. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you kind of have two sides. That's why I don't think that it is this is Philo's team. And Trammell's just kind of out there looking like he's earning it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I again, it's the first week of practice. Like, I'm not going to look too much into it. You could look at the clips all you want. They had some rollout, deep ball placement, outside post type plays, and both of them, were putting the ball pretty close to on the money, not perfect, but. And then they had some quick throw screen type plays where they just, they get the ball snapped to them. They set their feet and throw it. And they both looked good. I think they're both, very talented, very capable of being the starting quarterback for the Gators. I believe what Buster said makes the most sense, which is, hey, we're going to start the guy that leads the team and scores the most points. And so, I don't think anybody has a leg up. I don't think anybody, has proven anything yet. It's been 1 week, right? We're not even in pads.
Yeah.
We're not even in live game reps yet. So, I think it's super early. I think both of them have great arm talent. I think Trammell probably has a little bit more of a zip on the ball, but like you said, Philo, has experience with Buster. And so I think it's what I'm looking for in a quarterback is somebody who's going to, not turn the ball over and get the ball out quick and get the ball out accurately. And whoever does that, I think should win the starting job, whether it's, Trammell, whether it's Philo, maybe it's Will Griffin, right?
Yeah.
I would probably say Will Griffin's probably not going to win the job. I can probably say that one pretty confidently, but it's early in spring, so we'll see. We're going to get more clips, and the all of the beat writers and all the insiders and all of the talking heads are going to have their opinions. But Summerall said it best: like, he's not going to pick who the starting quarterback is, and neither is Buster Faulkner. It's going to be on the players. The players are going to pick who the starter is, right? Like, what you do on the field is going to be what dictates where you are on the depth chart. So, I think the last 2 practices, I think Trammell's been with the ones, but I think that follows Summerall's mentality that he stated that, hey, look, the returning guys are gonna kind of get the reps with ones, and the transfers are going to have to earn it.
Yeah.
So, we'll see as we get more clips and more intel, over the coming weeks, if Trammell keeps, working out with the ones, or if, Philo ends up starting to get some more shares of the 1 reps, we'll maybe start to be able to crystal ball it and see what goes on. But, I don't think we're going to have an idea or a named starter. Probably, Summerall even said, hey, I didn't name my starter, at Tulane when he started Mensa till the week before the season started. And Mensa was like 5th on the depth chart. He said that was the last guy I expected, and that was the guy I named. So I think when you have a coach that comes in and, the roster is the depth chart's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you end up starting that guy who was 4th or 5th on the depth chart, like, I don't doubt that this is going to be an open competition for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I can't wait for the orange and blue game to watch that. I think you're going to see real competition. You're going to see the guys getting after it. But yeah, I'm fine with it going all the way until, right before the week 1. I'm cool with it. It doesn't bother me. I know a lot of people just want to know. I think they just want to know so that they can bitch on the timeline, whether it be whoever it's going to be. But me personally, I know you're the same way. Get me whoever's going to score touchdowns. That's the biggest thing. But real quick, if you're in here watching right now, if you don't mind, before, we're not done yet, but just share this out for us. Smash the like button for us. And, it helps a ton. If you're not subscribed and you're watching right now, just click it real quick. It's right there.
What are you doing?
Yeah. What are you doing? It's right there and it's free and it helps us out. We got some number changes. We got some jersey number changes. I got an opinion on this, and I'm gonna let you go first, and then I'm gonna
No. You've got the opinion. You go first.
Okay.
You go first.
Okay. Me personally, from everything I've heard about VB3, how vocal he is. He's the first one in the building. He's the last one to leave. He's out there. He's wanting to learn. You heard Buster Faulkner say that he questions the coaches, and he believes that he knows the answer, but he's just trying to see if they know the answer, And I think his skill level, everything he did as a true freshman, I'm cool with him wearing that 1. He's a Gator through and through. I think you cut him open, he's orange and blue is coming out because he bleeds it. And I like the idea because we love to compare things. I love the last guy that went from 8 to 1. So if he's anything like him continuing on, we're going to be A-okay. Then you got Bryce Thornton. And this is where I hope and pray that he proves me wrong. But we've watched him play. And you got this guy who rocked the 1. You got Reggie Nelson who rocked the 1. Keywan Ratliff who rocked the 1. I just do not see him in comparison to those guys. And maybe I get my socks blown off this year and I'm like, dang, Bryce he rightfully deserved that one. I was wrong. I ate crow on March 6th when we talked about this, and I was mad about him wearing the one. There's a different type of animal who wears one for the University of Florida. Offense doesn't bother me as much when they wear one, but when a DB wears one, and we've talked about this, you got to be that guy. Now, we'll say one more thing real quick before I let you go on it, because I'm not a huge fan. But I asked Vern, I texted Vern. I'm like, yo, what do you think? And he goes, let me do some digging.
Was Vern the last player to wear one as a DB?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And he got it like a couple games in, or maybe first game, I think it was. He was rocking number 16, and then, he needed a pick to switch to one, and he got it. But talking to him, he said, I'm going to reach out and ask. And then he shared it on his Instagram. He shared VB3, and then he shared Bryce Thornton. And I texted him. I said, you approve? He goes, I approve. I'm like, all right. Well, he's got to prove it to me, because I have some high standards of that one jersey. So I'm not a huge fan, but again, knock my socks off. Please, Bryce, I hope you somehow hear this, and I hope you prove me wrong. If you want to argue it why you should wear one, come on the podcast if you see this. But what's your opinion on the one jersey being tossed out there?
No, I mean, I have no problem with it. I think if you look at the DB room and you look at what Summerall said in his comments, because he was asked specifically about, letting VB3 and Bryce wear one. I think that he said, look, Bryce asked me very early on, and I said, hey, look, become a leader, lead the team, lead by example, be vocal, conduct yourself, in to the standard of the Florida Gators, and I'll think about it. And then winter ball went through, and then right before spring, he came back to him and said, yeah, you can wear one. I don't think that John Summerall has an ounce of BS in his body. And so I think that if he got to spend, the last 4 months or so, 3-4 months or so, watching Bryce, and then he comes to the conclusion that, hey, yeah, you can rock one, I'm good with that. I mean, I think Bryce's resume for returning DVs is probably the most impressive, right? I mean, the guy's basically played or started in almost every single game that he's been available for since his freshman year in 2023. We don't win the Ole Miss game 2 years ago without his 2 picks. He had a touchdown last year. He was, I think, second on the team last year in total tackles with 56. He had a sack. He makes plays. And, do I think that the DB room as a whole is in the last 2 or 3 years has been to the standard of what, we've come to expect as, kind of one of the DBUs, as we used to call it, with some of the greats? No, I mean, I don't think that Bryce is up there with some of those guys. I mean, because there's some, Joe Hayden, Vern, there's some very big, kind of legendary players that have worn that number. But I think that he understands he's earned it. And I think he also understands that, the weight and the impact that number has when you wear that at the University of Florida. And so, I expect Bryce to be an impact player. And they've all said that, like, he is without a doubt, not even close, the leader of that room. And so I'm okay with a player wearing it if they're a great playmaker, right? That's one qualification. And a lot of times great playmakers necessarily aren't the leaders, right? We've seen that before, where you have guys who can make plays, but they're maybe a little bit more quiet and reserved. But I also like having a player that wears one being the leader and the tone setter at their respective position. I think VB3, from what we've heard, is 100% the leader of the wide receiver room. Even if maybe Eric Singleton's a little bit better and a little bit more polished and experienced. But VB3's earned it for sure. And I think Bryce, again, I mean, you look at his total body of work, Grant, he may not go in the first round, right? I don't think he's going to be a first round pick as a safety. But he's been here for 3 years. He's played in a lot of games. I think he probably has the most experience of any DB returning. And he's been a model citizen. He's been a Gator through and through. He's never left. He's never flirted with leaving. He's here. And so, I think with that and what he's done and stepped up in big games, like I said, that Ole Miss game, we don't win that game probably without, the impact that he had. So I'm against you on that. I'm totally fine with Bryce wearing it. It was a little bit out of left field. Now I think, if Jaden Woods had said, "Hey, I want to wear number 1 and not number 0," does he probably get it over Bryce? Maybe. But, if I had to pick of any of those guys returning, other than, Miles and Jaden, like I'm good with Bryce wearing 1. I think he's earned it. I think he's been a Gator. I think he bleeds orange and blue, and Summerall has said he's earned it, and he's a leader of that DB room, and so I'm good with it.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say is if he's going to wear it at safety, I need at least 3 picks this year, and I need receivers to fear coming over that top. Don't let them, if they go over the top, you better smack them up. Like, that was a big thing that Reggie Nelson did back there, and it was like, You're not throwing back here. Like, I remember hearing that, like, you're not going to throw crosser routes on these DBs, but especially not me. But speaking of football players and hopeful future Gators that, hey, maybe they rock one day, we got some recruits that are going to be coming to town. Let me see. Let's throw this up here. This is a freaking list. Like, this is a list.
This is a list, and I only included 2027 class in this list because I would have had to have done a whole nother page for 2028 and 2029 guys coming in. It's going to be a very big weekend in Gainesville. As they put on the pad Saturday, they're going to have a very stacked list of visitors in the swamp. Some big names on here too, right? This isn't just some no-name guys. We've got 4 stars, we've got 5 stars. There might be another bigger 5-star guest coming as well. But we've got guys on all sides of the ball, every position group coming to see what the Gators are putting out in practice. And I'm very excited. This is going to be a big weekend for them. And, I think there's some guys on this list. Fernard Robbins is one that comes to mind. Elias Pearl, again, just named us one of his top schools. George Lemons, obviously, at tight end, really likes the Gators. Tyler Alexander, the staff's been big on. And then we've got 5-star Zion Forstall. And then Frederick Orange, who's been crystal ball to us, who, we've made the graphic before. I think he becomes a Gator sooner rather than later. And then Zayden Gamble, another big guy. Caden Henderson out of Jesuit, where I'm from, stud linebacker. We're pretty down on his list, but we'll see if I'm very curious to see what his thoughts are after this weekend. Because what I've learned with this staff is they get guys to name us in their top 3 or 4 or 5 out of left field. Like, when you least expect it, the guy says, I had a visit. I talked to Summerall. I talked to, Buster. I talked to Bam. I talked to Chapman, and I'm really liking what the staff is putting down. And so I expect a lot of good intel and maybe some fireworks coming out of this weekend. Wouldn't surprise me if we get a commit from somebody on this list. And it just goes to show you that, again, this staff, there's a lot of aspects involved with being a coach and being in college, whether it's coaching the team that you currently have or making sure that you're focusing on bringing in the next generation of talent. And this staff just seems like I don't know when they ever sleep, because they continue to just work and grind through all phases of it. And so I think it's going to be a really big weekend for them. And I'm excited for these high school recruits to get to see, what a Florida Gator practice looks like, especially, maybe some of these guys probably had visited last season and saw what, how a practice went with the old regime. I'm excited for them to maybe, get their eyes opened a little bit to see what this new staff is doing and the way that they carry themselves and the way that they run a practice.
Yeah. it's just nice to see a list like this and to know, again, like you said, when they go out to practice, they're going to see a legit practice. Like, it's not going to look like, and maybe it scares some people off. Maybe they did come out to the
That's
Billy
good.
area and they're like, we liked how calm he was. He was kind of chill. And then Summerall and Co is psychotic and they're yelling. Maybe it scares them off, but that's fine. If it scares
That's
you
fine.
off,
Yep.
yeah, I would rather you come out knowing what's coming for you and you want to be a part of that because you're just as psychotic. You're just as crazy in the head. And you're like, I want to be a part of that rather than I want to come out here because they kind of let me get by and do what I want to do. I'm going to tell you this real quick. I want to touch this. I've never touched on this. I've never said this on the podcast before, but it's something I will never, ever, ever forget. I'm not going to name the player who it was, but I got to go hang out with some of the players. And I remember asking the question, this is long before I did a podcast or anything like that. And I asked a said player, I said, what is the difference between Mullen and McElwain? What's the difference between the two of them? And he goes, I like McElwain more. And I was like, why? And he's like, he let us smoke. And I'm like, bro, I can't wait for you to graduate. I can't wait. I'll tell you this. That player played tight end. So you can go do your math and see who I'm talking about, but that's the only tidbit I'll give you. But
look, I think if a player comes here and they saw the last year's team and they saw this year's team and they're like, man, this year's practices are way more intense and tough. I liked that cool, calm, and collected, quiet practice. Then hey, go call Billy at JMU. Tell me you want to come.
Yeah, he's got a spot
I'm
for you
good.
over there. But yeah, just dude, touching on this list, golly, man, it's just nice to see. And like you said, they don't sleep, man. I fully believe, even if these guys don't commit, even if it goes into the season, I will guarantee you that if they want you, they are going to just stick on you as hard as they can up until you officially sign and go somewhere else. And shoot, the transfer portal is still there, so they'll probably stick to you still even after that. But we want the Gators football team to win championships. We'd love them to win SEC championships, but we do have a team and a coach who is he's really doing it. He's out here doing it. We are the outright SEC champions of basketball, starting this year. I doubted Todd Golden. I doubted the players on this team. I'm like, Todd Golden got by with Wall. I was mad because the team looked soft. And Todd Golden and the genius that he is, he dialed it in and he has figured it out. And these boys are red hot. I'm talking about scorching hot, and they are blowing people out of the water. So we got the SEC tournament coming. We got a couple round bye. I don't know about you. I saw this on the X timeline as well, and I couldn't agree more. Shout out to Tyler if you're watching this. I saw you post it. I want this team before March Madness comes. I know the SEC tournament is huge, and we'd love to win it. I think if we win it, I think we have the 4th 1 seed. But I would love to see this team get into a dogfight in the SEC tournament. Maybe not, even if they win it, I want to see it be to the very end. I want them to fight. I don't want to hear Ollie chants. None of that. I want this to go to the very last second, and we got to find a way to pull out a win. Because I feel like right now, these players are now in the mindset of like, well, 7-8 minutes left in the second half. We're chilling. We're good. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to see a dog fight, a Gator fight. So what's your opinion? You think we're winning we're winning the tournament?
I agree. I mean, you always want to see a team tested, and the end result of winning a national championship back to back is way more important to me than winning, a SEC championship. And I think you can win the national championship with this team, whether you win the SEC championship or not. So, hey, if we look forward, whatever needs to happen to get this team on the right track, if that's losing the SEC championship and having a chip on your shoulder or getting into a dogfight, or just, staying red hot and rolling through everybody, whatever it needs to be to win the national championship, I think is what every Gator fan wants. But, I think they've been tested. I mean, you look at Arkansas, Mississippi State, the Ole Miss game, like they were close in the first half, and a lot of games have been close in the first half. And then you've seen them kind of, change their tone, get some intensity, make some adjustments at halftime, and go into the second half and dominate. And that is what you need to see from a team. And so I'm pretty confident in their ability. I think they've been tested. So, if they win out the SEC tournament and they just, dog walk everybody, I don't think that they're going to get, a little bit too full of themselves or a little overconfident. And I don't really care whether they're the 1 seed or the 2 seed. I mean, you look at the statistics. Being a 1 or a 2 seed doesn't really make a huge difference. I think this team, has the potential to go all the way and to repeat. But it's, the one weakness we've had all year, and I think what's going to come down to is making threes.
Yeah,
like the front court's fine, rebounding's fine. In the paint, the mid range is fine. Herb's got to have a type of game, that cements him as a legendary player for the Gators in this tournament, probably. And I think you've got to, Lee or Boogie have got to turn it on, right? If we want to win the SEC tournament, or we want to make a deep run into March in the national tournament, you've got to have somebody turn it on. Somebody's got to get hot, and that could be Thomas Howell, right? That could be Kondo, who's been electric the last. I think he's averaging 20 points a game the last 5 games. Like he had a slower start to the beginning of the season, and he's really turned it on. So, I'm pretty confident there, but I do think you still have to have somebody who can make threes when they need to, because the teams in March, it's a long tournament. It's a lot of games. That front court's going to get tired. It's going to be tougher to rebound on some of these teams, especially when you play the other 1 and 2 seeds who have that elite talent that you do as well. But Kondo's led the team in scoring 4 out of the last 5 games. Howell led them against Arkansas. So I think that we're in a good spot where we are now to win the SEC. I don't see any real threats. I mean, good Lord, they've beaten every SEC team over the last 10 games. Hey, if a loss to Kentucky is what we need to wake us up and to get us right for the SEC tournament and March Madness, then I'm all for it. Like, so be it, right? So, but this team, they've just got to find somebody who can be a little bit more consistent with the threes, because outside the perimeter you look at every team that's won the national championship, they generally all can shoot threes at a pretty good rate. And that's still something we've gotten better than we were at the beginning of the year, for sure. But it's still something that I think is going to be a key for us if we want to, make it back to the national title game.
Yeah, 100%. Real quick, we get the 1 seed or we get the 2 seed? What do you think?
I think we get the 2 seed.
I think we end up with the 2 seed.
I think UConn win. I think UConn wins out. They beat. They win the Big East, and it's going to come down to the head-to-head record, right? And they have it at the beginning of the year. I think if we played that game today, I don't think UConn has the same result. We kept it pretty close with them, but and again, I'm fine with it. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if it's a 1 or a 2. So
that number doesn't matter if you win the national championship. I said that last year. I say it again this year. It doesn't matter what number is beside your name. They can't deny you when it comes to national champion. So
no, and last year, I mean, we had all 1 seeds in the Final Four, which was the first time in quite a while. It's more rare than it is, frequent. So, if we're a 2 seed, I don't think it matters. I'd love for them to get the top 2 seed, go to the West and get to play in Tampa for the second round. So, it'll be a quick drive and travel for me to be able to go to that game. So selfishly, a 2 seed, if we get to play in Tampa, I'll be pumped about that.
Yeah, it'll be worth it. Well worth it.
The GatorBoys will be at the game. That's guaranteed.
We'll have a vlog for that too. Just let it be known. So if we end up in Tampa, I'm going to make sure that if you ain't a Gator Boys, it's going to be a vlog. You're going to see us on there. We're going to post it on here, and that's some stuff that might be coming your way as well for next season. So look out for it, possibly. But we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. If you're in here, smash the like button, share this out. Even after it's over, when it's uploaded, share it out to somebody. Go comment on it, anything like that. It helps us out a ton. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, commenting every single time. Bro, it means the world to us. Yeah, spring ball is here. We got the Gators running hot. The baseball team's running hot. Softball's running hot. It's a good time to be a Florida Gator. And it's always great to be a Florida Gator. But you guys know how we end it here. You guys know how it always goes. If you ain't a Gator, y'all know the rest.